Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Puna Kōrero meeting for Thursday, the 13th of March 2025. To begin, I'd like to invite Taku to lead us in karakia. Thank you very much, everyone. Moving through to apologies. There are no apologies, but we do have Councillor Johnson online. We'll just acknowledge. I'll move through to our first major item, which is public forum. So, councillors, we have 3 speakers in public forum today. I'll just remind both councillors and those who are speaking as well that each speaker will have 5 minutes to speak. That includes time for questions as well. Councillors can ask questions, but we're not here to have a debate today. And same for those who are speaking in public. You can present your view, councillors can ask questions, but this won't be a debate today. So our 3 speakers, first is Liz Kelly. Liz, would you like to come forward? Yeah, sure, that's no worries. Does Michelle or Marie want to go first? Or do you want to come up together? Okay, cool, no worries. Okay, cool. Would you prefer to just combine your 2 times together? Okay, cool. So in that case, I think we're going to have a bell at 8 minutes, and that will leave 2 minutes for if you want questions at that point.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mari Wright, and I have lived by the surf club in Titahi Bay for the last 57 years. The ratepayers of Porirua request our council demand a full investigation into Wellington water for the past 10 years. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Chair. My name is Michelle Wachowski, and I'm speaking to the second report, as is Maori, on the Wellington water efficiency and value for money. As ratepayers, we are furious. Our rates have been poorly mismanaged and gone into the pockets of greedy contractors. We are deeply concerned. We continue to pay rates to this council, whose CE, Wendy Walker, has no checks and balances in place around spending our money, and Mayor Anita Baker, who protests too loudly to support her former colleague Nick Leggett, but never calls her CE to account. We seek accountability, as does Councillor Filo and hopefully more councillors around this table today, because we want our money back. We want justice. Is there going to be an inquiry into Wellington Water, as we don't know how many millions we've been charged on the price per kilometre of renewable pipes, the infrastructure and capex, compared to other councils outside the Wellington region, suggesting perhaps that Wellington Water hasn't known what the benchmark is? If the CE is not scrutinising the cost, then who is? How much have we been overcharged? What is council going to do to get our money back? How will you make sure this doesn't happen again? Why has Wellington Water Board Chair Nick Leggett not resigned? Why is the Porirua Mayor supporting him? Nick has exhibited a gross lack of strategic oversight, where his governance as chair on Wellington Water Board is highly questionable,
Are you going to hit study?
as he is also CE for Infrastructure New Zealand and is accountable to his board. One of those board members is CE of Fulton Hogan, who among others pays Nick's wages. Nick knew there was an investigation into high contractor fees, a rise of 73%, identified in the Field Force report, and his employee Fulton Hogan was one of the major recipients of this increase. And his board member, Pat Doherty, knew this too. And then Pat, the board member, became Pat, the CE of Wellington Water. And he approached this council last year requesting millions, knowing about the inflated contractor fees, but never said a word. Does this not resonate with the 3 council mayors that voted to keep Nick Leggett on as chair of the Wellington Water Board? Mayor Baker, we know you voted to keep Nick on as chair. Why are you so loyal to him? Were you one of the mayors who voted to shut down the field report? And in my report I've got last year, but actually it was worse than that, it was 2023. Because Mayor Wayne Guppy said you were at the Wellington Water Committee on Monday. This report, commissioned by Wellington City Council, exposed the 73% price increase for contractors. Anita, why did you want to hide it? Yesterday, Labour Party leader Chris Hipkins said the pipes are run down, money the ratepayers are putting in is not doing what it should, Fulton Hogan has no moral compass, and Wellington Water needs to be turned upside down as there is a lack of strategic oversight and its structure is not working. Councillors, the ratepayers in Porirua want answers. We want accountability, we want trust restored, and we want you to stop those pulling strings in a system that protects patches and creates jobs for the boys. Right now, you have let us down, and you need to fix this. Kia ora, thank you. Now, I would like this presentation, please, Josh, to be tabled at this meeting and recorded in the minutes, and a response, please, to these questions. If not today, then as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we've got a little bit of time. If there are any questions from councillors, does anybody have questions? There do not appear to be any.
No questions?
All right, thank you very
Wow.
much.
Thank
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Liz Kelly.
Just clarify, as an organisation, if there's 2 of us, do I get 8 minutes?
Sorry, if you just want to come forward just so people can hear you online as well. So my understanding is that under standing orders, the extra speaking time for organisations is just when we're doing submissions as opposed to public forum.
So I'm just asking for clarity because those 2 got 8 minutes.
Yes, but both of the previous speakers requested to speak today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just know that in future. But
Yeah, so if there are other people that you want to sit with you, that's okay, but we have to go based off what we received
so
yesterday.
it's 5 minutes.
Just the 5 minutes, yeah, that's right. So there'll be a bell that rings at 4. All right, take it away.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Liz Kelly aho. I'm here today to speak to item 2 of your agenda and to express the concerns of the Porirua Whānau Centre regarding the increasing rates we are paying to Porirua City Council. Currently, just under $26,000, a significant amount for a community-based organisation that serves our vulnerable communities. Despite paying these rates, we are responsible for covering the costs of our own water, rubbish disposal, and we also clean around our own building and parking area. This raises a key question. Where is the value for the ever-increasing rates we are being charged? I've seen the letter from Mayor Baker in response to an open letter from Wellington City Council Mayor Tori Whānau. It appears that there is a lack of recognition for the role Wellington City Council play as the largest shareholder in the region and leadership in regional matters. I am concerned that if this council continues to demonstrate a lack of strong leadership and collaboration, Wellington City may choose not to join us in the new water reforms that are affecting the region. If that happens, what would this mean to Porirua City and its ratepayers, including organisations like ours that already feel the brunt of rising rates without seeing the return of adequate services? We need Wellington City Council with us. In addition to this, I want to raise my frustrations with Mayor Baker's continued defence of Nick Leggett, the Chair of Wellington Water. It's clear why Mayor Baker defends him, because as the Mayor of Porirua, Nick Leggett led the decision that sold out our city by joining Capacity, which later morphed into Wellington Water. Despite Porirua City having the best asset management plans in the region at the time, and our officers and Kaimahi advising that this decision would not be good for Porirua, their warnings were ignored. Mayor Baker, as a councillor at the time, supported this flawed decision. I was on council at that time, and I was the only councillor who opposed the move. And now it is painfully clear that the concerns raised by our officers and Kaimahi were right. Further, at a briefing chaired by Kerry Prendergast recently, it was admitted that the current water management model was flawed and was never going to work. Yet we continue to face the consequences of this poor decision. It's time for me, Baker, and this council to stop shielding Nick Leggett and the Wellington Water Board from the accountability they owe the people of Porirua. The ongoing sweetheart deals with contractors are costing Porirua ratepayers significantly, and the lack of oversight from the Wellington Board is a major issue. We need more than apologies, we need accountability. I see in your papers today that already there's a concerted effort to reflect from the real concerns outlined in the Deloitte report by trying to justify the higher costs we have been charged. Remember, Nick has been on Wellington Water since March 2022. Wellington Water knew these issues in 2023 from the Wellington City Council Commission report, and yet they rejected the findings. The position of Wellington Water is not new news. It's just that it is now public for everyone to see. Nick is not the solution. He is a part of the problem. Mayor Baker's continued defence of this mismanagement and blocking of any real accountability for those responsible is simply not acceptable. It is not enough to say we need to move forward, because I agree, we do. But, well, the people who caused this mess are not accountable? No. If this situation continues, Mayor Baker, you should consider stepping down, as you no longer represent the interest of the ratepayers who put you in office. We deserve better leadership, and we deserve accountability to be able to move forward. I tabled 20 copies as requested by my submission today and asked they be included in your minutes, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you very much. We are at time. There's enough time for one question if somebody does have one. I'll just open that to councillors. There do not appear to be any. Thank you very much, Liz.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we are now going to move through into conflict of interest declarations. Are there any conflicts anybody would like to declare? There do not appear to be any. Notification of extraordinary business. There are no items of extraordinary business. We'll move to the confirmation of the minutes for our Thursday, the 6th of March 2025 meeting. I'll move those and ask for a seconder. Councillor Duncan, thank you very much. Are there any corrections to the minutes? There are none. In that case, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? That is carried. We move now to item 7.1, the proposed temporary road closure. I'll move the report to open it for discussion. Seconded by Mayor Baker. I will invite Kaylee to speak to the report. If you'd like to come forward. Cool. If you come forward just for if there are any questions, Kaylee. Thank you very much. Looks like we can go straight into questions. Any questions or comments? Councillor Wehapi.
Thank you. I just want to ask if these road closures in the morning will actually be put up on an antenna for those who may not, read signs on the side of the road and things like that.
We can get that arranged, yeah.
For the Chair.
Any other questions from councillors on this? I don't appear to be any. Just before I put the motion, I want to acknowledge Kaylee. I understand this is your last meeting with us today.
Yeah.
Just wanted to thank you very much for all of the work you've done with the time that you've been here. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there being no further questions, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That is carried. We'll move now to item 7.2, Wellington Water Limited, efficiency and value for money. I will move the report to put it on the table. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ford, thank you very much. Wendy, do you want to speak to this report?
Just briefly, thank you, councillors. There's been plenty of media around these reports. We wanted to lay them in front of you as soon as we possibly could. They're not a good story. What they show is some poor controls and processes inside Wellington Water. I suppose it's important to point out what they are and what they aren't. They aren't an attempt to place blame anywhere. That would require a great deal more work, nor are they an assessment. If you read them, they're quite heavily caveated about what conclusions you should draw from them. All sorts of conclusions have been drawn publicly. We will get Wellington Water to come in and speak to you directly about them. They commissioned the reports, they understand them best. But today I wanted to give you the opportunity to have that debate and lay it in front of the public as well. It's an important factor in our responsibilities as a council that we do that. So Mike and I and Jim and his finance team will attempt to answer any questions you have, but the truth is we probably don't have that many answers right now. That's probably for another day.
All right, thank you, Wendy. I will open to questions and comments from councillors. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Phelan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions of clarification, but I'm also going to foreshadow, based on those questions, that I may lay an amendment before this meeting.
All right, noted. Thank you.
First question, and this is in relation to point 4 of the report. What has been done so far to investigate how much Porirua has been overcharged? Has there been any preliminary assessment of how much Porirua has been overcharged?
As I said before, the reports don't enable us to do that. They actually explicitly say that in there, that they shouldn't be used as an attempt to do that assessment. So, no, we did, we've obviously read them thoroughly and seen if we can draw any conclusions. The best that we can do is to get Wellington Water in and interrogate them and work out what the best next steps are.
Okay. Have officers sought legal guidance on whether we can recoup any of the money that has been overcharged? If not, why not? And what steps need to be taken to do this?
So it's not quite that simple. Certainly we haven't sought legal advice on that. When we give Wellington Water money, it's not broken down by job or anything aside from our CapEx projects, which are very large. They're in buckets of money. So the controls, if you read the reports, what they say is the controls over those buckets aren't as good as they should be. That's why, and there's a whole lot of factors operating in there. And certainly some of that has been canvassed in the media. The Mayor's received a couple of letters from contractors, which we're happy to share with councillors. I'm sure they're almost certainly public somewhere, which basically point out the issues around our own water network that have been underinvested in for decades and are certainly part of the issue for why our costs are higher than comparable local authorities. The assessment is our water infrastructure is some of the worst in the country. How did it get there? From over decades.
Sorry, excuse me, just some members of the public, if you could remain quiet, thank you very much.
So what you're saying is no one's looked into how much ratepayer money was lost or whether it can be recovered yet?
No, I didn't say that. I said we have looked into it and we've been unable to ascertain that from these reports. These reports do not enable that.
Okay, how can we ensure, how will officers reassess our budget to ensure we're no longer budgeting based on inflated costs, our future budgets?
We'll be working with Wellington Water to do that. They are the ones who provide us with the detailed information. Mike and his team are the ones who interrogate those budgets.
What measures will be put in place to ensure future spending is properly scrutinised so this doesn't happen again?
The Wellington Water Committee has another meeting tomorrow. These are concerns that are held across the region, so certainly we'll be drawing some conclusions there. If you listen online to the report, the meeting that Wellington Water Committee had on Monday, the panels have already been seriously controlled. So many of those issues, actually there's a very good report on Monday's meeting, which I'd encourage you all to read, if you're interested, because there's plenty of reading in all of this. So it does outline some of the things they've done. There will be more to come, I'm sure.
Okay. So based on those answers, I would like to move my amendment.
All right, what is the amendment you would like to move?
That Porirua City Council undertakes a full investigation into how much ratepayer money was overcharged by Wellington Water and commits to exploring all legal and financial avenues in a cost-effective and prudent manner to recover these funds on behalf of ratepayers. Any recovered funds should be incorporated into future budgets to reduce costs for Porirua residents.
All right, do you have a written copy of the exact wording for that amendment, Councillor Filo?
I can email to Democratic Services.
Cool, that'd be helpful. So Councillor Filo has moved that amendment. Is there a seconder?
Yeah,
It's seconded by Taku. Thank you very much.
just so that it enables further discussion on the matter.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much, Taku. So that amendment has been moved. Councillor Hayward?
Speaking to the amendment.
I believe if we're now that the amendment has been successfully moved and seconded, Councillor Filo can speak first, and I will note that you will be the next speaker after that, Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Matua.
Councillor Filo.
I want to acknowledge the public. You have spoken, you are angry, and you have every right to be. You want accountability, and you deserve it. And it needs to be real, not just lip service. On Monday, I watched the Wellington Water Committee meeting, and I was appalled by the answer that the CEO of Wellington Water gave when he was asked if he would be coming to councils to give an analysis of the overcharges. And he basically said that he didn't know the market rate, and so it would be too much in resources to go back and fix that, and he just wanted to move forward. I'm sorry, but it doesn't work like that. You don't get to waste and misuse ratepayers' money and move on. No accountability, no consequences. Ratepayer money has been overspent. We don't know how much, and we don't know how long it's been going on for. But one thing is clear, we need to recover every dollar that we possibly can. And let's be clear, this isn't about running up a big legal bill. Officers will need to be prudent, and it needs to be a cost-effective approach. We don't know the full amount that's been overcharged, but we know it's substantial. 2, independent reports confirm what we've suspected for years: overcharging, poor financial oversight, no competitive pricing. At the same time, ratepayers are facing a $5 million cost increase, which some of these costs include, this is in the next part of the agenda, which some of these costs include Wellington Water asking for more money. How can we ask them to pay more when we haven't tried to go back and take back what was wrongfully taken in the first place? How do we justify that? Families are struggling. There could be millions that could be returned to them in savings, and this amendment ensures that we get answers. And this isn't about looking backwards, it's about setting a standard about how we manage public money. Today, this council has a choice: stand up for the people who fund us, demand accountability, take responsibility for the financial oversights, plural, because doing nothing, that's not leadership, and that's not accountability. This council must decide, are we going to hold them accountable, or are we letting it slide? Kia ora.
Before we move to the next speaker, I'm just going to ask that we get the wording of the amendment up on the screen so councillors have a clear understanding of exactly what it is that we are discussing here. So that's up, everyone is able to see it. Our next speaker is Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora mātou upoko, me he kaikana hira katoa, me he hapori. I wanted to just be clear with regards to the proposed amendment, Councillor Philo. I agree with the sentiment that's been placed in here. I'm just trying to make sure that we understand what role Porirua City Council has and what role Wellington Water has, because it's actually Wellington Water that has done what they've done here with regards to the actions that are detailed in the Deloitte report. It's whether or not our council even has the ability to actually get the information from Wellington Water to follow through with that. The question therefore should be is that we should be directing and insisting Wellington Water to provide this information. So I don't know if the motion is entirely accurate for what I'm trying to get, what you're trying to get to, and if you're happy for a proposed amendment to reflect that, or at least to understand the rationale behind that, then I'm happy to support that on that basis.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Hayward. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so if that would be the case, just from a process perspective, that would be potentially an amendment to an amendment, which itself would need to be moved and seconded.
Point of order. It may be by leave of council, or by the councillors moving and amending it so that they can continue. We can proceed ahead.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. Is that something? Or I guess before we move to that, does anyone have any other questions or comments they wish to discuss in terms of what's on the table currently, noting that it's been signalled that there may be a change based on what Councillor Hayward has said?
Just one clarification. Once we get through the resolution of this proposed amendment, we are going to be able to go back to questions because I still have part-I.
Yes, at the end of this amendment, we will move back to the substantive motion. That is correct. Yes, Wendy.
I just want to clarify, is the amendment seeking for us to spend money pursuing Wellington Water or pursuing contractor? What are you? And well, we haven't budgeted for that. That is likely to be very expensive. I just want to understand, when you say all legal, it says like no stone unturned. Anyway, I'm just seeking clarity on what you are wanting from that amendment.
I'm wanting, sorry, could you just start the question again? So that was...
So what I know from legal action is it takes you down a path that can cost you hundreds
No,
of
I get that.
thousands
I
or
just was
millions
trying to get your
of dollars.
question.
I'm just trying to understand, is that what you mean, that we should pursue it at all costs? Because that's what it says to me.
That's why I put in a cost-effective and prudent manner with regards to the legal costs.
Yeah, so I think...
So what
Sorry, Councillor Filo. The concern potentially that I would have on this current wording, and I suspect may be shared by some colleagues, is if we were to pass this today, there would obviously be cost implications attached to that we don't have a clear sight over at this stage. I understand it says in a cost-effective and prudent manner. That my personal view is I would feel much more comfortable voting for something if I had a clear idea of what the resultant action would be and what the costs associated with that action would be. I suspect it's difficult to determine that in the meeting without advance notice on this amendment. So if we can potentially find a way to address that, if there's some specific action, I think that would, certainly from my perspective, make this more palatable. I agree with Councillor Hayward. I fully understand the sentiment here. I'm concerned about the unintended consequences of this motion. So I wonder if you could just speak to that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think an assessment, first of all, needs to be done so we know how much we've been overcharged. And then we can, based on that, so if it's like $10 million and our legal costs is $300K, well, then we know it's worth pursuing. Does that clarify things?
Okay, I to a degree. I
might be able to add to that.
Sorry, excuse me. Yeah.
I've got a...
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to see if there are any other questions or comments from councillors specifically in relation to this amendment by Councillor Filo. Sorry, excuse me, if we could please have quiet while councillors are discussing this. Thank you very much. Councillor Wehapi.
My only concern is the cost of whether we as a council would be undertaking that, because obviously we're a shareholder of Wellington Water and it would cost our ratepayers more on both sides of the coin, wouldn't it? So I would like to see how much it would cost, or I would probably be in favour more of what Councillor Hayward's saying around investigating from the Wellington Water, investigating that side of it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I just want to see, are there any other questions or comments from other councillors? Yes, Councillor Leggett.
I understand the sentiment. I do not. Can we ask the
Sorry,
people there to not comment while I'm talking?
Yeah. So if I could just, addressing the public, it's important while we're having this discussion that there is silence so we can discuss this properly and also so we can properly hear each other. I understand that there's a lot of passion about this in the room. We're really glad that people are engaging. I have asked a few times for quiet. If there is continued discussion, I am going to have to ask people to leave the room. I do not want to have to do that. So I'm just signalling that now and would like to be able to have the rest of this discussion if we can. Thank you very much. Councillor Leggett.
Thank you, Chair. As I said, I agree with the sentiments behind this. However, as all these things, and has been pointed out by others, the devil's always in the detail. And I'm concerned that we're going to throw good money after bad if we're going to pursue something like this. I suspect that at a regional level, these things there will be a push to analyse some things further. But the three reports that have come out actually say that they haven't contemplated how much is involved because there's not enough data there in order for them to do that. So trying to find something that's not there is probably impossible. And I think the best way forward is to, as I think the Chief Executive of Wellington Water has said, make the changes so that we can analyse where we are in the future and be able to benchmark. And I think that's important. I will not support something like this because I think it's going to take us down a path that we don't want to go and cost ratepayers more money.
Thank you, Councillor Leggett. Councillor Ford.
Sorry.
Can I just say, there was another comment there from a thing about that I am an independent person who can make up my own mind. It doesn't matter who I'm related to. So just keep quiet while I'm talking.
Agree with
Councillor Ford.
agree with Councillor Leggett on that comment. Thank you, Councillor Filo, for bringing the amendment that we've just seen today, this morning. I agree with the sentiment as well. And no one is denying around this around this table that Wellington Water has betrayed a trust that we felt, we could trust them. Everything they came to us, it was in good faith. I agree with a lot of what you've said. I think there definitely needs to be some measures in place to ensure this doesn't happen again. My issue is around the cost-effective and prudent. You've sat around this table for long enough to know that when it comes to legal, when we go down the legal avenue, man, they think we've got deep pockets. We don't, and we can't put that on the ratepayers as well. So I would be more inclined to support something along the lines that Jeff has brought forward, just based off that. We definitely do need to know, and also putting the costs on Wellington Water to actually further that investigation, which is us, in the long run.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. Are there any other questions or comments on this? I've got Mayor Baker and then I've got Councillor.
Thank you. I don't disagree with anything that's been said here, but Porirua Council can't undertake the investigation. Wellington Water has to do the investigation. And they've already said to us that it would cost more to do it, and they don't have the time to do it before the entity's handed to the ratepayers. I want to make sure we're doing what we've committed to, not just the iwi, to our residents, that we are fixing more pipes and looking after our harbour. And as much as I want to know how much we've lost, I can't give you a figure because we have no answer. But what's more important is we have our work going forward at the new rates, the contractors on board, which they assure us they are, and we're getting our pipes fixed so we have no more sewage and everything to harbour. So I can't support this wording. I'll be interested to hear your wording, Jeff. But bottom line, the CE at Wellington Water has told us it will cost more to try and go into it than anything else. So I'll wait for the new wording.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, like everybody else, the sentiment expressed here is felt pretty deeply. What concerns me with all these reports is that every one of them, ACOM, the peer review by Ryder Levitt Bucknell and Deloitte's all said there wasn't enough data to actually make proper decisions on it, to say that there was this amount wasted, this amount spent. Sure, the system was an absolute disaster for us there because the panel were deciding their own jobs and who would get the jobs to do it. But you can't, to compare us with Rotorua and to compare us with Hamilton, it needed to be like with like, and none of the comparisons made were doing that. So to do it off such limited amount of data, it just isn't a fair report. And when we saw the graph coming out from Wellington Water saying you can't use that graph line to say that's how much was spent or 3 times was spent, it just wasn't accurate to say that, because to compare Wellington's 120-year-old pipes with the pipes in Rotorua that are 50 years old is just a ridiculous comparison. And so for me, if those reports weren't able to contain the data, how much of a report would we have to go through to try and express how much has been spent, and if it has indeed been overspent on jobs? So I can't support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. I'm going to come back to Councillor Filo in a second, but before I do that, I just want to see if anybody else wants to speak to this amendment. doesn't appear so. I think, Councillor Filo, before we come back, my key concern here, I echo some of the concerns of other councillors, and that I understand the intent here. I'm concerned if we support this motion as it currently stands, that it could end up potentially costing us a lot more without getting the answers that we're looking for, and I don't think that's a situation that anybody wants to be in. I want to acknowledge, Wendy, before you mentioned that we are going to be bringing in Wellington Water to speak to these issues and workshop to councillors. Could you speak to us a bit about when that is going to happen?
It hasn't been scheduled, but we'll get them in as soon as we possibly can. They've obviously quite popular at the moment. All the councils want them in front of them. You know, they have questions that they need to respond to, and I think it's important that we hear from them. Yeah, so we'll get them as soon as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you. I think in that context, what my preferred approach on this would be, given that most of us are just seeing this amendment this morning, I certainly want to talk to Wellington Water. Agreeing with some of the sentiment that you have here, my view is that the appropriate way to do this would be bring Wellington Water in, have the opportunity for us to ask the questions that we want to ask, and off the back of that come to a position as a council about the pathway forward that could result potentially in something like this. I'm not prepared today to support a motion like this that is uncosted and could have unintended consequences, because that could potentially make the situation worse. So that's not me saying no, but it is probably not today until we've spoken to Wellington Water, is my view. I do want to hand back to you now, Councillor Filo, with the understanding that we might potentially be looking at an amendment as well, but I want to give you an opportunity to respond to people's concerns first, and then I can come back to Councillor Hayward.
Okay, so thank you for everyone speaking. I guess I want to be really clear about my amendment and speak to the concerns raised, because with regards to... So what Jeff had said, Councillor Hayward, Wellington Water, obviously we're going to get the information about how we've been overcharged. We've got to get it from them. So in the first instance, we need to get an assessment. That's not a legal thing. That's going to them and saying, hey, how much have you overcharged us for how long? The reason I'm bringing this up is because after watching that meeting on Monday, I got the impression from the CE that he kind of didn't intend to really look at that. And I think we need to. We need to know how much we have been overcharged. And with regards to the legal, as I said, once we know how much we've been charged from Wellington Water, we have an assessment of, okay, gosh, we got overcharged 10 million, 15 million, whatever that is. Then we can take the steps necessary, whether that's through legal or whatever avenues officers come up with, to say we want to recover that money. How are we going to do that? And that's taking us, what I really want today is us to take a stand that we are going to try to recover that money back. Yes. That's what I really want from today, that we're not just going to roll over and say, oh, okay, well, let's move forward. We need to know what we've lost, and we need to know that there's consequences, and we need to restore confidence in our ratepayers. That's what I would like to see today.
Councillor Hayward, you'd foreshadowed a potential proposal to amend the amendment.
Unless Councillor Filo and our kaumātua want to make a change to their motion, which would be as follows. You would, that Porirua City Council, then in here, instead of undertakes, directs Wellington Water to undertake, and then carry on from that point forward.
Okay.
I'd actually be happy with that, Jeff.
Okay,
Yeah.
so before we open discussion on that, could we please get that wording up on the screen? Councillor Hayward, could you please repeat? Maybe if you could just read out what the first line of that would be in your amendment.
Understood. So notwithstanding that everything else from line 2 down would be unchanged, the first line would say that Porirua City Council directs Wellington Water to undertake a full investigation into how much ratepayer money, etc.
And then continues from there. Do we have that wording?
I'm not sure if we can
Yeah, 1 second.
No,
Wendy's just going to speak to this.
I'm not sure that we can direct Wellington Water to do that. We're a shareholder, we're in a multiply owned council controlled organisation. I don't think we can direct, and also the refunds. They haven't overcharged as such. We've provided them with a pool of money each year. We've agreed to the pool of money, and they have spent it in a way that means that we did not get value for that money. It's not like it's lying around in somebody's pockets waiting to come back to the ratepayer. So I just think that there's a couple of problems with the wording here. Everybody understands that nobody's happy about this. This is not a good situation. We do feel like we've lost faith with the company. However, we have to ask them the right question to get a response that is meaningful from the company, realising that they've potentially got 16 months' life left to live, and there's no recovery beyond that point anyway. So it's just a logic problem rather than a sentiment problem, I think, with the position as it is, and I don't think we can direct Wellington Water as a smaller ratepayer in the scheme of things. So, yeah.
Point of order.
Thank you, Wendy. I have just before coming to, we'll come to the point of order in a second. I've received some advice from officers that a more appropriate wording that would be within our bounds potentially would be to replace the word direct with request. I want to propose to the mover of this amendment, would that fulfil what you are seeking to achieve here?
So I'm not moving it, I'm only proposing a means of change for the movers and seconders.
Yeah, so a point of order, Councillor Hayward.
So this is where my point of order is, because I want to give some clarity as to the rationale behind why the word direct. I think that, yes, it is right that the council as a shareholder has representation through the Water Committee, of which it is one of many councils that are part of Wellington Water. And no one council can direct in the same way that no one councillor can direct the CE to do something. So I understand that part of the rationale. However, the nature of the language is going to be political. And the nature of the language will also need to be carried across the other shareholding councils who, if moved by today's arguments or today's discussion, or have already come to that conclusion already, might just as well want to support the same approach as well in future as well. I understand the nature of the value for money argument that the Chief Executive has also made as well. And it may be that this investigation cannot yield any more information than we want within the next 16 months. But to say nothing at all would make it feel like we had done nothing when the opportunity arose for us to do something about it. So I guess the argument, I think, is a political one rather than an operational one. And I think that in that context, I'd like us to, keep directs, but we'll die in a ditch if it's going to have to be requests, because I'd rather have something than nothing at all.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Filo, based off of that, sorry, I am going to have to ask that there is no more speaking from public. It makes it difficult for us to hear the discussion that we're having. We're very glad that the public is here, but we ask that you be respectful of this discussion. Councillor Filo, around this proposal from officers that potentially a more appropriate wording within our bounds would be requests, would you be comfortable changing the amendment to reflect that?
So what's the rationale behind saying request instead of direct? Because direct sounds more strong.
So
Why would I put a soft approach?
So I understand that. So that was based off of the indication we had from Wendy that it is not technically within the power of Porirua City Council to direct Wellington Water to do something like this. So if we were, and I think I'm getting my understanding on this right, if we were to direct Wellington Water, it might feel good to direct them, but they would not have to listen to us. It's not within our power to actually direct them. Hence, request might be a more accurate reflection of what we are actually able to do.
It sounds like we're just mincing words a little bit here, and does it, you know what I mean? Like, does it really matter? I think direct sends a stronger message, whether they take it as a request or a direct. I'd also like to point out too that if this was a private enterprise, if this was a private business, if this was your money, your personal money, and you'd been severely overcharged, that you would be negotiating, you would be investigating, doing everything you could to recoup the money. And so I don't think ratepayers' money should be treated any different.
Okay, so I think everybody's had the opportunity to speak to this. Sorry, Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, look, I just want to remind councillors that with the noted weak financial management processes and controls in Wellington Water, we had a visit here last year from the Chief Executive, Pat Doherty, and Nick, coming out here to explain to us why they needed a computer system to actually get a hold of all their expenses, because they had nothing to work on. They were relying on Fulton Hogan's databases to actually work out what work was needed. They had nothing of their own, no proper financial systems either. And they were requesting then money, and they were struggling to get us to agree to actually give the money to get a computer system together. So for them to actually be able to go back through their, what did they have? They were using Excel spreadsheets, for God's sake. How on earth are they going to go back through all of those to actually figure out just how much has been spent and how much should have been spent?
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Duncan. I do have one more comment before I do that. I just want to see if anybody else has anything they'd like to speak to, and then I think we're getting to the point where we'll put the amendment for a vote. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Nalo.
So can we just clarify that whether it's Councillor Filo's amendment or Jeff's amended amendment, that there's still going to be a large cost to the ratepayers requesting data that might not necessarily be available? Is that what we're saying?
Potentially. My understanding here is that we don't know. This hasn't been costed. We don't know what it would be. So that could be the case.
So it's not like the First Amendment is going to cost more than the amended amendment. They're both going to have huge costs and impacts on rates, say?
We don't know.
Ultimately, if Wellington Water spends money on an investigation, they have to find that money somewhere, and we're the people that give them. So it's likely to flow back. Yeah, potentially, yeah.
Across
the point
all
Councillor-
shareholders, though, if Wellington Water are doing it, as opposed to Porirua City Council, which is the First Amendment,
Yeah.
not the amended amendment.
So I think overall on this, understanding that Councillor Filo would like to keep this current wording that is on the screen, which is
Oh,
the
no.
wording-
I'm happy for Wellington Water. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, the wording
yes,
on the screen
yes, I am
with
happy,
directs.
sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think, again, before we go to vote on this, I would just indicate, in terms of my perspective on this, completely understand the intent and what we're trying to achieve here. I am concerned about the unintended consequences. So you understand what my preferred course of action on this would be is we're going to bring Wellington Water in soon. I've got questions I want to ask them as well, absolutely. We'll have an opportunity to discuss the appropriate pathway forward. Potentially at the next full council meeting, we could bring a notice of motion or even a formal paper around something like this when we've had the opportunity to cost out what that would look like. I would feel much more comfortable with that route, so I know what we're committing ourselves to. So again, this isn't me saying no, this is me saying I'm seeing this for the first time today. I don't know the costs, and I think the responsible course of action here is to go through a process around that. So because of that, I will be voting in opposition to this amendment, but signalling that if something like this was to come up in the future when we've gone through that work, I would absolutely be open to it. So that's why I'm going to be voting that way. I do want to give Councillor Liggett an opportunity to speak, and then if you have any last words, Councillor Filo, as the mover, you will be able to speak to this before we vote. Councillor Liggett.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just saying that I also will be voting against the amendment but for exactly the same reasons as you. I think we need to get Wellington Water in here to have the ability to ask them questions. Then we can make up our minds about a path forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Leggett. Councillor Filo, you'll have the last word on this, and then we will vote on your amendment.
So I just want to I want to clarify again that the process of this would be we'd have to talk to Wellington Water in the first place to find out how much we have actually been overcharged. So that is the first step. Once we know that, then we decide, are we going to take legal action or whatever action we need to take to recover the money? So in that instance, it's not a big expense. We've got to be smart about it. We've got to make prudent choices here. I don't want this to be a big legal blowout either. I just want us to take a stand that we're going to try and recover some money. If there is potential for ratepayer money to be recovered here, and the balance is bigger than the cost, I think it's a no-brainer. I think we need to look. We're asking people for money all the time with rates increases. If there's a chance that we can actually reclaw money, we need to pursue that and be seen to actually be taking action and looking into being responsible actually with the money that we receive from ratepayers. Doing nothing sends a message that there's no consequences and that councils can just get overcharged, and don't worry, nothing will be done about it. And it isn't just about money, it is about trust, and it's about restoring the confidence of the ratepayers, saying that we will take a stand. We value your money and we want to look after it, and if it's been misused, we want to do what we can to claw it back.
Thank you, Councillor Filo. Okay, so with that, so I'll remind councillors on process because we've jumped around a little bit. We're going to vote on this amendment. This will determine what the substantive motion is. Once we have voted on this amendment, we will return back to the substantive motion. At that stage, if anyone has further questions around this paper, noting that the original recommendation, I believe, was just to receive the report, we can then discuss that, and then we will vote on the substantive motion. So, putting the amendment that has been moved by Councillor Filo and seconded by Taku, all those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? Okay, I'm going to ask for a show of hands on this just to make sure that we get it correct. So I'm going to start again with all those in favour. Please raise your hand. Cool. We have... Sorry, if you could keep your hands raised, I'll need to read out the names. Councillor Ford, Councillor Weehappy, Councillor Hayward, Councillor Waddle, Councillor Filo and Taku Parai. Oh, sorry, and Councillor Nalo as well. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Those are Councillors Duncan and Leggett. Abstentions? Mayor Baker. And sorry, you can record myself as a negative as well. The motion is carried. So that motion has been carried. That has updated the substantive motion. So we will now move back to the substantive motion. Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Matu Upoko. There were a number of questions that I had in preparation for today's meeting.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. I didn't record the vote of Councillor Johnson. Councillor Johnson, could you please indicate your vote on that amendment?
Yes, no, I'm not supporting that.
Cool, so as Councillor Johnson was opposed, that is still carried overall. Sorry, back to you, Councillor Hayward.
That's okay. In preparation for this meeting, I had a number of questions on the I guess in the expectation that Wellington Water representatives would be here present to speak to the report. That did not happen, and so now I'm kind of left in a quandary because I understand that Wellington Water are going to be coming in, and the question I wanted, so the questions I'm now going to have are going to be questions to our officers in relation to that part of the process. So my first part of the question is, were Wellington Water officials informed that this was going to be an item that was going to be brought up for this meeting in particular?
We didn't formally tell them that. They are aware that all councils are taking these, but I don't know that they knew about this particular, the scheduling today. They're really busy right now, but they've got a Wellington Water Committee meeting tomorrow, so I knew they would not be available here. But that's why we're getting them at some other point.
My next question is, why would this item be brought up now with the understanding that Wellington Water may not be present to speak to the reports prepared and issued by on their commissioning? Could we have waited until we knew that they were coming in so that we could answer those questions? What was the need to have it in on this day's meeting?
That was my call. I thought that councillors would be wanting to discuss it. There's a lot of media attention around these reports, and I thought it was the most sensible course of action. There's a lot of community sentiment about it. I think it's always better to do these things early and take a two-stage process if need be. This is actually going to go on for the next however long Wellington Water goes. This is not a one meeting issue in my view. So yes, I thought it was the best thing to do to bring it forward early.
Okay, one last up. Viewing the recommendations that have been placed up on Wellington Water's own website in regards to these reports, is it officers' view that Wellington Water commits to all of the recommendations that were made in the reports issued, the various reports that were issued, commissioned by Wellington Water? I want to be certain that all of the recommendations that were placed in those reports have been committed by Wellington Water to be implemented. Was there any slippage at all, as officers understand it?
I haven't done a complete reconciliation, but my understanding from the meeting on Monday was that Wellington Water has committed to all actions, and what they said at that meeting on Monday was that all of the recommendations have been addressed and 90% of them are in place and 10% of them are still under action. That's obviously an estimate, but that was what was said at the meeting.
I'm going to stop questions here, but I may want to come back for comment later on. Is that okay?
I will see if there are any other questions. Is there anything else people would like to speak to on this? Okay, there are a couple, so I'm happy to come back to you, Councillor Hayward. I've got Councillor Ford and then Councillor Waddle.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say the only frustrating thing about today is that Wellington Water isn't here to answer any of our questions, so it kind of feels a little bit like we're asking you, you don't know the answers to the questions that we have. And it is unfair on you guys as well. Yeah, because some of those steps on there, they've got, in their recommendations for steps forward, there's, it could be considered, should, all that sort of wording, which isn't, we will, so it would be good to direct those questions directly to the people who we want the answers from. They can give us the answers, that's all.
Councillor Waddle.
Yes, just a quick one from me. Has this report or anything around these reports been notified to the Auditor General?
Not that I'm aware of. There's been a lot of talk about that, but I don't know myself if that action has occurred.
Okay, just supplementary to that, is that an item on the committee's agenda for tomorrow?
The value for money reports were considered on Monday. They're not another agenda item tomorrow, but there is a general governance and management report that is reported at every meeting, which will no doubt cover many of these same issues. They certainly value for money in a general sense has been part of those reports for some time and as part of their organisational improvement plan. So The topic will be under discussion, but the item was considered on Monday.
Thank you. I'll reserve my comment for later on.
Okay, thank you. Were there any other questions before we move to? Okay, I've got Councillor Thelo, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Hayward.
It's a question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do officers know if the Commerce Commission is looking into this or investigating?
No.
You don't know? Okay. Will that be addressed in tomorrow's meeting?
I don't think anyone's asked that question. It's not really a Commerce Commission role. It would be the Office of the Auditor General maybe might take an interest in it, but I don't know any more than that.
Okay.
Councillor Hayward.
I've been trying to figure out how best to articulate this, considering that Wellington Water aren't here today. And so I'm going to hold off on some bloody polemic. But it was a word that was used a couple of times. Like think of Councillor Ford and Councillor Filo here. The word trust. There is an imbalance in this whole situation, an imbalance of trust. To rebalance it requires a degree of utu. Not utu in the Western sense, utu in the Te Ao Māori sense. And I feel like I'm not going to be able to get to that place today. And that frustrates me immensely. And it's not to reflect badly on any individual who's on the shovel working for Wellington Water. Yesterday I saw on social media, yes, I do see your posts, everybody. I noted that there was someone who said that they had someone close to them work for Wellington Water as a contractor, and that they were getting abused by the public. Not for work that they did, not for the work that they're doing every day, but for decisions that were made far higher. And the trust that has been compromised as a consequence. I want to go back to Wellington Water's website for just a brief moment here, and I think that this will lead into my next point, which is what I think I will want to foreshadow when Wellington Water comes in. Review recommendations. This section says on the website, the review made the following recommendations which fall into 6 broad categories. Now, this is articulated by Wellington Water, so the first 3 are the important ones for me. Well, actually, the first 2. Rebuild the trust and confidence of shareholding councils in Wellington Water. Rebuild the trust and confidence of middle management and staff in Wellington Water's senior management. Trust. There's that word again. So where to from here? I foreshadow with for the time when Wellington Water does come in that my questions are going to be around the systemic issues that have been identified in the report, around reporting mechanisms, around the ability to improve receiving the timely and comprehensive updates on the recommendations that have been pursued thus far, and continued assurances around the ongoing effectiveness of Wellington Water's procurement and financial systems. I don't know if there's anything more for me to say today. We cannot wait too long for Wellington Water to sit in those seats. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Are there any other, Mayor Baker?
It's just that I asked on Monday that they come and visit this council. They've asked every council, so we are scheduling them to come in. I would say that we held off voting on this paper until they actually came, so you can have the answers you want. Because as far as I'm concerned, the sooner Wellington Water has gone in 16 months or whenever it is, the better. We need our work done at the right price. Yes, we need accountability, but bottom is we need to protect our harbour and get our pipes fixed and stop abusing people on the ground, because as you say, they are doing the work we're requesting them to do. And no one wants our ratepayers to be ripped off, least of all me. That's fine. I can take the abuse from people who think it's my fault. I have no problem with that. But leave the contractors alone who are doing the job. I have heard from many contractors.
But let's just wait till we hear from the management of Wellington Water and then put this paper back on the table would be my suggestion.
So Mayor Baker, to clarify, are you moving that we let this paper lie on the table?
I would like to. I know we've had discussion, but it seems we can never get an answer. Or can we bring it back? Because I'm not sure we can leave it to lie, seeing we've talked about it.
I just need to take some advice on this.
Anita, don't bother.
Point of order. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm just taking some advice. I'll come to your
Okay.
point of order in a second, Councillor Filo. All right, so I'm just going to speak to the advice I've received first, and then I can come to you if needed still, Councillor Filo. So the advice I've received is that a movement for this paper to lie on the table and for us to come back is not allowed under standing orders unless it is moved and seconded by people that haven't already spoken. However, we can move to suspend that standing order. Doing so would require a 75% majority of councillors. So if we do want to move that this paper lies, someone would need to move that standing order be suspended. That motion would need to be supported by a 75% supermajority of councillors. If that was the case, we then could let this lie on the table. So that's what the process looks like for this to be able to happen. Does that address what you were going to raise, Councillor Filo?
Yeah, I guess that does address it. I'd like to know the reasons for her wanting to lay it on the table. It just seems like
Okay.
she doesn't want my amendment to go through.
Your amendment's already
thank
gone
you very
through. What I want to lie on the table is the fact that all the councillors get a chance to talk to Wellington Water about it. It's not about you, it's about Wellington Water and these guys asking the questions. Yours is already on the table. We've already heard from you. We've accepted it. And if these people don't stop,
Yeah. Sorry.
Point of order.
I'm giving the council.
Sorry, if I could just have
Point of order.
silence from councillors, I'm going to adjourn the meeting temporarily. The meeting. I'm going to come back to Mayor Baker.
This has nothing to do with Councillor Filo's amendment. That's already on the table. I have no problem with that. But I think the councillors need Wellington Water in front of them to be able to answer these questions. Yes, this was scheduled early before we knew we couldn't get Wellington Water in. But to be fair, we need to hear so we can decide how much further we take them. But I'll leave that up to everybody else to decide.
Okay, so to clarify, Mayor Baker, for this to happen, there would need to be, you would need to move that we suspend, what is the specific standing order?
6.2.
Okay, so there would need to be a movement that standing order 26.2D be suspended for the remainder of this meeting.
Can I ask a question around that? If I don't move that, can this paper come back another time or not? This is to the CE. And that would then stop all this.
We can bring the issues back, for
Right.
sure, yeah.
So that will leave pulling off, lying on the table, and we're basically going to say we'll get them back in again, and so we have the same paper up again.
Yeah.
That would be easy, like,
It won't
I
be
didn't get a
identical
chance to do
paper, but
that
it'll be
because
the
I
same
kept getting
subject.
interrupted. Okay.
Okay, so to clarify, Mayor Baker, what's your...
Happy with that, as long as they're coming back so the councillors can speak to Wellington Water. So
Okay.
happy to leave it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Ford, did you have your hand up? Yeah.
I just wanted to get some clarification myself as well. What difference does it make if we move this amendment, whether the paper comes back or not? I don't get why we'll get to ask Wellington Water the questions, but I don't think what their answers they're going to give us is not going to change the fact that we still want to get money back or answers. So I don't know why we would, have it lie on the table to get further answers from Wellington Water. And we've got this report in front of us that sort of tells us it's not going to be any clearer.
All I was trying to achieve is Wellington Water in front of you to answer the questions.
Yeah.
So
they're still gonna come back.
either way is we want accountability at the table.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do at this point, given there's no amendment being moved and everyone has had a chance to speak, I think we are going to progress to the end of this motion. The final comment, I guess, that I would like to say on this... final speaker, Councillor Wehapi, and then I'm going to draw a line under it. No worries.
No. I'm not going to repeat what everybody else has said today. There's complete frustration. It's been going on for quite some time, and there are actually a lot of us who have asked Wellington Water in the past what they were doing in their practices to be prudent around their own spending. But I just want to say, and I want to actually show our support to the Mayor today because she has been absolutely pummeled by the public, and it is unfair to blame her for this whole situation. We are a full council, and it is our whole responsibility. All right? Thank you.
Kia ora. No, I agree with those comments, Councillor Wehapi. And I think what I'd like to say on this before we vote, and I'll remind councillors, when we vote on the substantive motion, it is both the original receiving the report and the successfully moved motion from Councillor Philo are both going to be included here. I did vote against including this amendment for the process reasons that I outlined. I see the value in us having a unified position on this. I'm happy to support the substantive motion as we go forward because, as I said when I was talking to this before, the substance of this, I don't disagree with you, Councillor Philo. And I do very much look forward to Wellington Water coming in on this as well. And that probably leads to the second comment I would make, which is off the back of this, I'm very glad about what we are about to vote on in our next paper in terms of potentially moving towards a future where there is no longer Wellington Water. And I don't think I'll be alone around this table in thinking that. In any case, that draws us to the end of discussion on this. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That is carried. All right. That brings us through to item 7.3, approval to consult on the proposed annual plan 2025-26. I will move the motion to put it on the table, the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Leggett, thank you very much. I will invite officers to speak to this report. Nick, is it you that's introducing this report?
Through you, Chair, I'll actually ask Mia to introduce it, if it's all right.
Thank you very much.
Kia ora, councillors. So today we are asking you to... Hello, I'm over here. It was a bit full. Today we are asking you to approve to consult on the annual plan. This consultation will run from the 20th of March to the 20th of April. I won't go into section 1 of the annual report. However, Ian and Graham are there to answer any financial questions about the rates reduction initiatives. Section 2 is a consultation on local water done well delivery models. There are 2 options on the table. Again, happy to answer any questions related to that. We have Dougal list over there as well. I think that's it.
All right, thank you very much. So we're going to move straight into questions from councillors. I have Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora noa mātua upoko. Thank you, officers, for bringing this to the table. I'm going to withhold comment at this stage because I have a specific line of questioning that may require supplementaries, mātua. This is going to be a curly one for officers, so apologies in advance. This is in regards to Wellington water funding, notwithstanding the issue we've just had previously. It is highlighted in a document that actually came through the Hutt City's Long-Term Plan Committee back last month, February 24, titled Advice to Hutt City Council regarding proposed Three Waters capital and operational expenditure budgets for the 2025-26 financial year and triennium. So this is in regards to, obviously, their work that they're going to be doing. Paragraph point 11. Council, I'm going to read this out because nobody else here would know what I'm talking about until I read the whole thing out, so bear with me. 11. Councils have signalled that our request for investment in the building of capability for the organisation will be declined. However, Greater Wellington Regional Council has agreed to include the funding for technology and systems, subject to some final resolutions, in their draft annual plan for consideration by their councillors in February. If approved, this means that Greater Wellington Regional Council would debt fund the full amount of $37.5 million over 3 years and charge interest to each Metropolitan Council via the bulk water levy. I read that and thought, I've never heard of that being considered before. So here's my questions. One, did Porirua City Council officers know of this arrangement by Greater Wellington Regional Council, and if so, when?
Very quickly, sorry, Councillor Hayward, could you give me a page reference for what you're referring to?
Unfortunately, because this is Hutt
sorry, it was
City, I had to read the whole thing out. That's why it can't be in there.
No worries, thank you. Yes, sorry, back over to officers.
We did raise it, or we talked about it quite extensively. In public session, we were not explicit about which council it was because the Greater Wellington Regional Council had not considered it themselves at that point, and so we didn't want to do it. So our position is identical to Hutt's in that we were not going to fund an OPEX amount to enable them to fund their IT system, Wellington Water's IT system, but Greater Wellington's position, and it's actually in the document, it's in our, certainly in the questions answered last night, but we have raised it with you before. And I think most of you probably worked out that it was Greater Wellington Regional Council, but I think we talked about another council, another bigger council with a greater debt headroom. And we are only paying the interest proportionate to our share in the region. So our position is identical to Hutt City's, and we think we've told you about it.
Notwithstanding that I can't recall myself, but that's neither here nor there for the line of questioning I have. So, isn't the more appropriate request, though, for a funding that's going to affect assets that are held by our councils, in this case, Porirua City owning its own assets, to have had that request come through our annual plan rather than going through the Greater Wellington Regional Council's annual plan?
It's going through everybody's annual plan.
But the funding is going through regional council.
Yeah.
And it is operational, but it is relating to assets that would be shared across the councils.
For them, it's debt, and they will charge us through the bulk water levy and the interest component, our proportion of the interest component.
Understand that, but it obviously has to be put against an asset, which is the improvements, which is described as technology and systems, is what I'm reading here. So there has to be an asset attached to it.
Yep.
Okay. If we carry on your line of which is that this is going to be proceeding ahead. What is it equitable that funding for technology is not funded through the shareholding councils itself? Is that good process?
Well, it is funded through us through the bulk water levy.
Last supplementary question. the proposal for a new water entity at the moment does include, in good faith negotiation, Greater Wellington Regional Council. Would these items, both the debt and the asset, be transferred over to the new entity, or is likely to be transferred over to the new entity if it is a shared model like one that we are putting out to the public for consultation?
Yes.
I've got no more questions at this stage, but we might have some comment later on.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Waddle.
Yes, just following on from Councillor Hayward's questions around the funding of this and through the bulk water levy, are we confident that the money we are setting aside will cover the addition to the bulk water levy to cover the interest on this debt?
Yes.
Councillor Filo.
Just following on from this topic, I actually don't recall us going into any level of detail around it being charged through bulk water. I know you did say some other council, but it would have been good, I think, to, since Hutt City have got it in their papers, to have that level of detail in ours as well, because it, and I would kind of like to know a little bit more about that. So in terms of interest, it's 100K, is that right? That the extra money for the IT system is what we're asking for to put forward in the annual plan. So is this how it works? The regional council will invoice our council for bulk water and will tag on another 100K for the interest expense to the bulk water bill. Is that how it's working, or?
Through you, Chair, I don't know if the specifics have actually been discussed yet, but that would seem reasonable. It's going through the Greater Wellington Regional Council approval processes at the moment, so it's still in the approval process,
right, so it's
rather
concrete.
than actually determining the mechanisms for it to happen. But what you're suggesting would seem appropriate.
Would seem the angle that they'd go, the
Yes.
approach they'd take. Okay, so we've still got to hear how it's not confirmed yet.
Yes.
Right.
Well, they're going through their own annual plan process that they're consulting on this, as we all are, so...
I mean, the details aren't confirmed yet.
Well,
Like,
until they can make a decision, we can't work out how the invoicing would exactly work.
okay, I've got some further questions to 7.3, 2.9. I'd like to clarify the details around the 2 million allocated for the Three Waters ongoing management and the transition costs. From what we know so far, it's been confirmed that 200K is going to Wellington Water for their staff, and 100K is going for the interest for the IT and asset. Have I got that right? And then the rest, I think 1.4 or 1.6 is going to the actual transition costs of the new entity.
Yes, so included in the draft annual plan at the moment, we've got a $2 million contingency. And I want to stress that word contingency, because these things will be confirmed the closer we get to actually finalising the annual plan. So for the moment, the calculation does show exactly what you've said. So, we've got a 100K in there for interest on, that Greater Wellington Regional Council IT investment.
Yeah.
We've got 0.2 of a million, or 200K, that is tentatively tagged to that request. I think there was 300K associated with levies and
That's right.
additional, what were they? They were the Water Services Authority and MB and so on. So these are things that have been thrown upon us or raised to our attention, brought to our attention. So we've made an allowance in this contingency. But in essence, this is a contingency, and I don't want to place any firmness to those numbers. They're the best we've got at the moment. come the end of June, we will have better details and better understanding. I understand the transition costs are still also, going to move and change and morph, and we will get better information. So it's in a state of change that these numbers have been put together, but this is the best that we've got at the moment.
I'm glad you said that word tentatively, because at the Wellington Water shareholders meeting I watched on Monday, Pat Doherty advised that since taking over, he's identified 5 million in savings within Wellington Water, which is great.
Yeah.
And that he expects to find even more savings moving forward, and it's a significant amount, and it raises the question then: does Wellington Water still require this 300K from us, given that they now have these savings to cover the costs themselves, or even further reductions? So if they no longer need this funding from us, then we have two options. We don't pay this money and instead reallocate that 300K to supporting the local businesses, or to not increasing the Cannons Creek pool, or whatever other savings that we're going out to consult on, or we could ask for our share of that 5 million in savings back, which split across 5 councils would mean approximately 1 million returned to us, and that could offset 1% of the rates. The CE did seem to indicate that he wasn't keen on returning those savings to councils, but his reasoning wasn't entirely clear. So given that, how do we actively pursue getting some of that money back? If more savings are expected, should councils not be seeing the benefit of those savings directly? So could I get a clear response on whether Wellington Water still requires this funding, given that they now have found this 5 million in savings, and expect even more to follow, and what processes would need to follow to either withhold the 300K or reclaim our share of the 5 million?
That's really probably a question for the previous paper, and it's back in that value for money issue. What Pat actually said on Monday was that the state of our assets were so poor that he didn't want to offer that money back to councils as they're not exactly savings, they're reductions going forward, because our assets needed so much investment. There were nods around the table. It didn't go to a particular vote, but the mayor was in the room at the time. So I think there was general consensus that all councils were very enthusiastic about improving their investment rather than clawing back money. So you'll recall that this is the draft annual plan, and we go through consultation, and as we get nearer the end to it, we confirm all these figures. So there's plenty to come to solidify those figures over time. So sometimes they shrink, sometimes they go up as well, but we will certainly be adding some discipline even more discipline to the Wellington Water figures.
Can I just add one thing? Just that we are the shareholding of Wellington Water isn't equals. So around about 10 or 11% is typically what our slice of Wellington Water is. So when it comes to those big numbers, it's not directly 1/5 or 1/6. It's more like 10%.
10% of 5 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I answer that or not?
Sorry, we had a further comment.
Yeah, I want to go back to the just reinforce something Ian said. So it's regarding this contingency sum. So if the contingency sum, which currently I think is sitting at around about $5 million, if you add up all the amounts that we've said for increases, Wellington Water costs and so forth, if for argument's sake they didn't happen, we're still in a deficit situation from a balanced budget point of view. And then the council has the choice to decide as to whether to reduce that level of deficit by any reductions to that contingency or not. So I just want everyone to realise that our position, even after this contingency, is still not in a balanced budget position.
Is that all your questions, Councillor Filo?
I guess I did have a question as well around our CapEx that's within the annual plan. It's not really, I guess it's not really one for the consultation document, but just after, you know, our last agenda item, I'm just wondering if those CapEx numbers are going to shift around a little bit and affect the annual plan numbers. Hearing what you just said as well, you know, but it's around the balanced budget. But yeah, I was curious around that, around our CapEx to do with Wellington Water and how those numbers might change.
Okay. Do you want to speak to? Yeah.
Just to say that the CapEx you have in front of it is a point in time. With CapEx, actually, it's never like that. It's always a bit of a moving feast, and two reasons for that. Especially with underground stuff, you never quite know what you got until you get in there. But I think what you're getting at is more around the prices that we get for CapEx. Most of the CapEx in this annual plan is actually for the tank, which was tendered. We don't, and actually that's 70% now. So we don't actually see. We actually don't see that as being an issue. Really, there's not much other CapEx that we're doing in Porirua other than a bit of renewals. So in terms of the risk that you were talking about, we think our exposure is quite low.
All right.
Okay.
That's all your questions, Councillor Filo? Okay, cool.
Yep.
I'm going to come to you in a second, Mayor Baker. I just had a quick follow-up question just in relation to the fact that obviously we're not through this annual plan achieving a balanced budget, and we've made a decision around that. Just so we're going in eyes wide open, could officers remind us, if we were to attempt to achieve a balanced budget through this annual plan, what the rating impact of that would be on top of what is being proposed?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
On page 293, we've got the additional information. It's in the supplementary information there. The council's balanced budget per the LTP year 2 was a $1.7 million deficit. Under the proposed draft annual plan, it's a $7.7 million deficit. That's a $6 million adverse movement, which would be about a 6% rate impact.
Okay, thank you very much. And so I just raise that because I think it's important for us to keep all of that in mind. We are making an active decision here. I think the wording that we used, consultation documents, is around buying groceries on the credit card. That is going to have a long-term effect, one that I know a number of us have raised concerns about. My feelings on that haven't changed. I'm not looking to relitigate that today, but I do think it's worth reflecting on as we're voting this through. Mayor Baker.
I'm not even sure if I could speak because it was towards Kathleen's question about what happened at the Wellington Water meeting. There was no cash coming from Wellington Water on Monday. It was investment in the ground, and we were all under investing, and if there was any money, it was going back into our pipes. We've just signed our harbour accord. The money goes back into council on the ground. We're not getting cash back.
All right, thank you. Are there any further questions or comments, Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, just really appreciate the work that's gone into this annual plan. It's superb effort. There's just a couple of small points I wanted to point out.
Here we go.
No. The spelling was impeccable. No, I just thought I was concerned that when I get through the report, we keep apologising and saying we've found ways to be more efficient. Honestly, over the last 9 years I've been on council, we keep finding ways to be efficient. I think there's a better way for us to say that we're already pretty damned efficient, I think, in the way we run things, and it seems a shame that we're apologising for that all the time. And I would have liked to have seen that softened a bit more. And just the last thing was on page 169, what this means for your rates. At the bottom of it, there's an asterisk there about commercial water meter charges increasing from $3.40 to $3.97. So is that as a result of the bulk water charges, or is it just a normal increase we're putting in there?
I can answer that. It is the bulk water coming main from the Greater Wellington.
All right. I know Councillor Hayward would like to speak again, but before we move into the Councillor Leggett.
Just detailed stuff. The additional information, like for example, I mean this is being a bit pedantic, but page 242. It's rating base information. I just and some of the other things that were in there about comments from staff members as well about what prices should be in terms of costs for things like dogs and other fees. But the one that on page 242 is a capital value of rating units, 20,418 million. Why don't we just say 20.4 billion? Sorry, that is being pedantic, but it's like, I looked at this and I thought, oh, that's not right. It's a hell of a lot more than that, and then realised it was billion. So I just make that comment. I don't know whether we want to change it or not, but I still make it. And are we able to ask about some of these other, what's actually going to go out to people? It's like remove fees, staff suggest that this fee should be this, not that. Can we just have a comment on that? Sorry? Okay, I'll give you one. So, page 205. All right. Is that actually going to go out as additional information? Sorry, I'm just trying to go back to it.
Minor changes to fees.
Yeah, minor changes to fees.
Through the chair, I can answer that question. So the supporting information all does go out as part of the annual plan. Typically, we have printouts just to support the substantive annual plan. We also have it available online. So yes, in short, it will.
So does that mean that, like on page 206 at the top of the page, would like to advocate for, this is staff comments, they go out as well, do they? So staff are advocating for... Yeah,
staff comments.
Yeah, it's got staff comments in there, that's what I'm...
We will take that column out.
Oh, very good, thank you. That's fine.
All right.
Just a point of clarification. Sorry, Chair.
Yep.
Before you do, I think the wording in the first, the top of that, would like to advocate, doesn't necessarily mean that the rest is not valid. I think you need to read that quite carefully before you say take out that whole column, because some of that is actually good explanation. I think we've got the wording wrong in the first box.
Yeah, it's just been transposed as a staff comment, whereas
Yeah.
this is, I think we need to edit that under the minor editorial provisions and everything.
All right. There do not appear to be further questions. I know, Councillor Hayward, you had another comment you'd like to make.
Thank you, Mātua Upoko. My line of questioning earlier was regards to the equity of how each of the councils across the region, but more importantly for ratepayers here in Porirua, are being charged, and the commitment that's been made by Greater Wellington Regional Council, though important it is in terms of actual good systematisation, for lack of a better word, is coming through a process that I do find rather difficult to reconcile, and I think it's going to be hard for me to explain when we get to the actual public consultation. I'm sure it's going to feel like fuzzy accounting for people, so we will have to be clear about that. I strongly support the call for the public to give their say, both on the annual plan but also on the future of water service delivery. I have been very vocal in the past about this particular issue with regards to water service delivery, and will continue to advocate the importance of a charter for consumers as part of a new water delivery plan. And so I will continue to make that point during this consultation period as well. I come back to the word equity, and noting in the report 14B and D around specific measures that we are going out to consult, those being car parking and fees for the pools. I have real concerns, as I did highlight during the workshop, around the equity that places on people who have the least amount in regards to living here in Porirua. So I will be watching the submissions that come in to see how the community is feeding back that viewpoint. And do resonate with you with regards to the balanced budget issue. I think it will be extremely hard for us to right now also add an additional, what I had understood to be 6% on our rates to cover balanced budget. But this is the compounding effect of our water services now becoming just so overwhelming, notwithstanding the role that individual contractors in certain panels might have played in creating that additional cost. We'll put that to the side. But it is still going to be an expensive proposition to pay for water, irrespective of whatever solution that comes out of this process. The question is, how fairly do we have it paid off, and what is the best mechanism to do that? I have no other comments on that, but I just would say that, as I do for all the long-term plans and annual plans, there is, for me, being Māori, this is, feeling that if you are silent, it can be seen as being supportive, when actually it's seen as contempt. I'm sure that some of my Polynesian brothers and sisters around this table, and even those who aren't part of the gender binary, kia ora to them too. The point being, do not let silence be your assent. If you are truly upset with these measures, make your voice heard. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Mayor Baker.
Well, we're on the same page, Jeff. I do agree. I'm happy with the document. I think the staff have done an awesome job. Thank you very much. Balanced budget, as much as I would have liked it, another 6% would just shoot everyone. It's just, our rates are tough now. Putting that on is just not workable. I hope everyone comes out and has their say. We've made it easy with all the consultations. People can video, they can go online, but please have their say. We do need to hear from them. It doesn't mean we agree or disagree. There's some really tough decisions to be made, but please be heard this time. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. Councillor, we're happy.
Not much to add. Happy with the documents, but I did just want to ask in regards to the consultation process, and I just wanted to confirm that anything that is put online on social media, particularly in response to our Porirua City Council page, is not considered a submission, is it?
No, people have to actually submit. So we've tried to make it easier with the video submission process, but they still have to make a purposeful submission. Just putting it on Facebook. We do a scan of the Facebook input, but it is not a submission.
Thank you.
All right. I had a couple comments just before we wrap up. The first was I wanted to draw attention to the good news story in this paper, and that is that despite the inflationary costs pushing up what had been proposed in the LTP as a 10% increase to a starting point of 15%, because of the work that our officers have done to find those efficiencies and savings, we've more than halved that, bringing it down to 6.75%. And I think as long and difficult as this process has been, and as much as 6.75 historically might not seem like what we'd be aiming for, that's a bloody good improvement. and that's been some really good work, and I think we should be really celebrating that actually. And so I want to acknowledge and thank all of the officers, the work that you have done to get us to this point, which I think is going to be, we are much happier with, and is going to be much more palatable to the residents of Porirua as well. So I do want to celebrate that. In terms of particular elements within this, that the balanced budget concern, I do have genuine reservations around it. However, I understand in the current context why we're going down the pathway we have. The reason I bring attention to it is I want to make sure that when people are submitting on this, that they understand what we are doing. We are making a decision that we know isn't necessarily the most sensible financial decision in the long term in order to alleviate that short-term pain, which is real, and we've made that decision, but it should be important that we do put that front and centre so people understand. That's why we've done what we've done. On some of the specific items that we're consulting, I'm not looking to relitigate stuff today. I do want to, though, emphasise that I do have reservations about consulting on some of these things, but we'll see what people that say when we go out for that consultation and come back and make that final decision. So overall, I think we've done really good work here. I'm really glad that we're at the point of putting this out to the public and hearing back from everyone. I very much look forward to taking part in the consultation events over the next month. And what I want to do before we vote is just go through and make sure everyone understands everything that is captured within this motion we're about to put, because this is quite a comprehensive set of recommendations. So obviously we are receiving the report, approving the non-financial supporting information for the proposed annual plan, approving the financial supporting information for the proposed annual plan. We're approving the consultation document and the submission form, both for the annual plan and local water done well, service delivery options, consultation between the 20th of March and the 20th of April. And then there's a series of other notes as well, which we are paying attention to as well. So just so everyone is fully aware, all of those things we are voting on all at once here. Councillor Leggett.
Just for clarity, because we're going to go on to this next, regarding the business park small unit rating package, that also has implications for rates, does it not? Asking of councillors. My estimate, and we're not mentioning that directly in this information, this consultation information that's going out that we're about to vote on now. So that would, if that went through, that would result in a rise of about, I don't know, another 0.12% to rates or something. $130,000 is impact on rates. So it wouldn't be a 6.75% increase.
It's been consulted on at the same time. In the consultation for the small business park, it's got in there in the back is the impact upon other ratepayers. In terms of residential, it's about $5 per annum.
I accept that. It talks about dollars. It doesn't make it very clear that this is in addition to the 6.75.
Graham can clarify. I think it's a shift, not an addition.
Correct.
It's a shift between sectors, not an addition.
That's correct.
So there is no impact on the 6.75?
The 6.75 is what additional revenue council's raising. This shifts it between one ratepayer and another ratepayer, so it's a shift in terms of who's paying. So overall, council's not raising them more money. It's who's paying that slightly changes.
So it would have an impact on the average residential rate?
Yes, it would have an impact on the, and we're not making that clear.
That is correct, but that's in the
it's in dollars.
Yeah.
All right, well, and I think we're going to discuss this more in the next paper as well. And I assume when we eventually come to the final meeting to vote on this after consultation, we would probably sign off on that item first, and whether or not that was signed off would have an impact on the overall annual plan. And that'll be obviously a matter for later. Yeah, we need to confirm that. Okay, I think everybody's had an opportunity to speak, so I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. We're going to pause now for morning tea, so I'm going to adjourn the meeting. And when we come back, we will be on to item 7.4. All right, I'm going to reopen the meeting of Te Puna Kōrero. We're moving now to item 7.4, approval to consult on the rating policy review business park small unit rating package. I will move the report to open it for discussion, seconded by Councillor Waddle. Graham, do you want to introduce this paper?
Thank you, Chair. I'll take it as being read. The only change since what I talked about in the workshop is we've now got a comparative, which is in para 5 against the other councils for the Hutt City and Wellington City, and that also comes into the consultation document itself, which is the attachment. That's the only change. In terms of what Councillor Ross-Leggett mentioned before, the impact of the change would be for the average residential would be 0.09%. We're not raising any new money. The 135,000 is just a redistribution of money. So if we were raising 135,000, that would be about a 0.13 or 0.14% rate increase. But it's just a redistribution. And that's disclosed within the consultation document itself in terms of the comparative if the package is accepted compared to the numbers which is in the annual plan consultation, and that's on page 305. So I'll take it as being read, and just any questions, please.
All right, thank you very much. Opening for questions. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, a great paper and eminently fair. I just wondered why it doesn't cover retail. It covers businesses, but not retail.
Well, we were trying to package it to those which were, there's not really retail orientated anyway, and in those places within the business park, especially those small units, you wouldn't want that to be a retail. But, I mean, if people don't like that, then they can always comment on that as part of the submission.
Okay. But it is specifically excluded, eh?
In terms of what I was looking at, but in terms of how they're being used, there is no retail in there currently.
Mayor Baker.
I think you're wrong on that. There's a cake shop in there. So, or that is advertising. So we just have to be a bit careful the way we word it, because it is open to the public and the pickup. So
through the chair, the intent here is that we were looking at commercial.
I agree with what you were trying to do, because
Yes,
I've
yes,
been there. So I just want to make sure you get your wording right, so it doesn't rule out those sort of people who are getting stuck in this.
Yes, Mayor, I agree with you, and we're not trying to constrain what they do within those so-called commercial parks. They are quite distinct, and you can find several others around Wellington, and we did that exercise, as Graham said, to prove, in fact, that our rates were relatively a lot higher. And I guess the interesting thing here is also that there has been if there's one area that is attracting more attention in terms of economic opportunity or development, is in the commercial that commercial space, and hence the reason to look at this more specifically. Admittedly, a lot of these small commercial units were built proximately and came on stream roughly at the same time. So I think the relativities back to Wellington City Council and Hutt City was actually quite an important part to the puzzle, and that strongly supports what we thought was happening.
All right. Councillor Hayward.
This may actually just be related to the previous questions around this. It's just, and I think this might be important because it came up, I raised this issue during the workshop. Are officers content with the likelihood of future users of these spaces, not necessarily the current occupants, that they may engage in activities that yield, that require a disproportionate amount of resources to operate, whether it's waste disposal through the drainage system or potable water to that site for their production capabilities? Does this are we comfortable with the arrangement that this is proposal is putting forward, which would enable them to gather an even better marginal cost for the work that they do?
Are you meaning the change in use, or a new owner took over and they were a high water user? I mean, if that was the case, then commercial meters would go in normally. And there is some units within this, the 60 which I looked at, which already have commercial meters.
Though, if I understood the proposal correctly, there is, in effect, a disproportionate reduction in the water charges that they would receive compared to the status quo.
What I was trying to come up with, and the way this whole thing is worded, is it's worded as a package. So it wasn't really trying to focus on any one component of the rate elements, but as the overall and the overall result. And that's why its target has been a package.
Appreciate for the explanation. Do you mind if I make comment now, and then I won't come back to you ever again on them until we have the deliberative. I urge people to participate in feeding back into this process as well. I still have some concerns about the risk of disproportionate benefit to users of this space, and I certainly think about the equity issues with regards to any work that we may do in the future with regards to those who have small businesses on their own properties and so forth. They may see themselves as being negatively affected by this policy and the work that's been done. That said, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, huh? Kia ora.
Thank you, Jeff. Any further questions? Councillor.
No questions. I'm supportive of this, and while understanding the comments that have been made so far, that's why we go out for consultation, so that we get this feedback and people will pick out any little bits that either benefit them or disbenefit them, either now or in the future, and we'll get to learn that when we get the feedback. So let's go with it.
Okay, cool. That appears to be all of the questions and comments. So with that, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That is carried. I'm now going to move a motion that we move into public excluded, seconded by Councillor Ford. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?